I was watching a video by Matt Colville, and he was talking about, in this case, D&D 5e, but he was talking about rewards in role-playing games and how rewards and how you handle them and how the game handles them can either motivate players or can even tend to kind of demotivate players. And now I'll put the link to that video in the description here. But it got me thinking, and as a creator of games myself, in this case, my role-playing game, Allies of Majesty, which is a spiritual fantasy role-playing game. It's centered on Christian lore, and the players play angels. We call them Elohim in the game, which means spiritual beings. But the players play angels, and they're in the armies of heaven, and they're going about trying to help humans, defend humanity, defeat the bad guys, the evil spirits, rebellious spirits. But anyway, it got me thinking about how does Allies of Majesty handle rewards. So in his case, he was talking about D&D 5e and how pretty much players are rewarded for not doing much else but showing up and occasionally rolling dice when they're required. And so he was comparing that to like his experiences more playing Dungeons and Dragons in like the 80s and the different way that the game was set up then. It's still the same game, but just some different things in the system. And I won't get into all of those. If you want to know those, watch the video. But in my case with Allies, what I want to do specifically was look at something that he put forward, and he said that what the game rewards, or what the system, or the in my case we call it the host, which is the DM. So what the host rewards is what's going to motivate the players, and that's what they're going to be motivated by. The behaviors that you reward are the behaviors that the players are most likely to exhibit. So in looking at Allies of Majesty, I felt pretty actually pleased with the things that he was pointing out and the things that I see actually in my game. And it was one of those things that it excited me enough. I wanted to make a video and just kind of go over a few of those things, because they are things that are a little bit different about Allies of Majesty. Now, one of the areas that he talked about was goals and presenting clear goals. And he stated that if you're not, a lot of games will not just kind of expect you to do the right thing because it's the right thing, or be motivated because, well, that's what you're here to do. But it doesn't really help, give the character a motivation. And the goals aren't always clearly communicated. And he talks about rewarding achievement of goals so that it gets characters excited to pursue goals. And when I looked at goals in Allies of Majesty, we actually, you're part of a heavenly army. You're part of these angel armies, and you're given orders. You're given a mission to go do this thing. You guys are gathered together, or you're sent to this place, and you're going to go do this thing. And so there's not really a problem with goals in Allies of Majesty. Now, sometimes the players will forget, and they'll say, wait, what are we supposed to do? And so maybe writing it down would help, or giving them something to remind them as a tool would help. And that's something I can add for my own practices. But you're basically, you're given clear goals. And if you complete those goals, you get honor for completing the goals. Now, honor in Allies of Majesty is like the experience in other games. And so same with that, like you're promoted in rank when you gain enough honor. That's similar to levels in other games. Same thing. So in this case, if you complete the mission that you're sent to do, then you get honor for it. And if you don't complete it, you don't really get honor for that portion. You might get honor for something else you've done, or just trying sometimes, but you don't get honor. The honor is proportionate to the results that you achieve. So if you do kind of partially affect the situation, you're going to get partial honor. You're not going to get a full blast for that. If you do it, you get the honor. If you do it and above, you do extra side things that the host, in that case, what we call the DM, that the host didn't even think of, I'm giving you bonus honor for these things. And so you do get honor directly for not just fights, but that you get honor for completing overarching goals in the game. And so that's one of the things that I think we do well to help motivate characters toward achieving and actually investing themselves in the outcome of circumstances. Now, another difference with Allies of Majesty is you don't win every fight. In a lot of role playing games, that would end up in a situation where all of the characters in the party die. They get wiped out, and now everybody's got to make new characters. Or the host, the person running the game, would have to the DM, I guess, in those games would have to come up with some way to kind of make it work, or who knows? It's all in how they decide to handle it. But in Allies of Majesty, it's one of those things where you're playing an immortal being. You're playing this angel, and so if you get beat up, then you're defeated, but you're not dead. You're not ceasing to exist. You can't fight for a while. You got to come back later. You got to get restored by one of your teammates or whatever it is. So or you might get captured in some situations, but the characters don't always win. And so if you beat up some of the guys and you reduce the forces in the enemy and that makes an impact on the mission, you might get partial honor for that, or you might get rewarded for the guys you were able to defeat. But if you don't defeat anybody, you get next to no honor for the combat values of the game. And so that motivates the players to cooperate and do well. And there are some tough situations where they've really got to work together well to actually achieve the goal and, beat the bad guys, or they're just going to get taken down. And I have a little more freedom to do that because of the situation where if everybody gets wiped out, it's a learning situation and not a total party kill. Now you all got to make new characters situation. Now, another difference is you're not just getting honor for doing fights. I said about mission honor before, but also when it just comes to an encounter with other, characters, bad guys, you get honor if you defeat the enemy's purpose. So you don't have to necessarily beat up all the bad guys. If you can convince them, there's a thing in the game called parlay, where you actually request to kind of negotiate and talk. So if you can convince them that this fight or this situation isn't in their best interest to pursue, or that they wouldn't stand a chance against you, or whatever else you can come up with. If you or you find a way around the guys and you don't even have to fight them, but you still can get past the guards or whatever it is. If you're in a situation where you can find creative ways to solve the circumstance, then you still get honor for that. Now, combat in the game, because it is highly tactical, can be time intensive, or it is time intensive in most cases. So you're going to get a greater amount of honor from the combat than you would if you just convince the guys to go the other direction. But because of that time intensiveness, if you really do it in like an HPM kind of, that's a term I just made up, like honor per minute, of playing time, it's going to be more efficient if you look at it pretty much hands down. If you can find a way to avoid the fight and still complete your goals, you're going to get more honor in the end than if you had drug out and entered into a long fight. Now, also part of the system is that characters get bonuses. I encourage hosts to give bonuses for, things that somebody's done above and beyond. If they did something especially sacrificial, or if they did something to really encourage and pull up another player who was struggling at the moment, or just did something really creative. Anything like that you can see during the mission that happened. I encourage hosts, and I do this myself. I try to award honor bonuses for that. So there's not really a need to keep everybody equal. That's another thing that was brought up, is that, in some games, you'll see this, everybody levels up I'm saying all my game terms. Everybody levels up at the same time, or they have this same chunk of experience that they get all at once. In this game, in Allies of Majesty, if somebody gets honor for a specific bonus thing they did, that's going to put them a little bit of ahead if nobody else got that. People that are engaging and really putting themselves into the thinking and being active are going to have slightly more. Now, eventually that might be enough that it makes an extra rank or two, if you're consistently doing that. But it's definitely one of those things where players do get rewarded, and it's okay. The game is set up. It expects and facilitates that people are going to be playing at different ranks, different strengths. There'll be a stronger guy and a little guy playing with them. And it's perfectly set up to enable that, especially since if the little guy gets trounced, he's just defeated for now. He's not gone for good. Now, along the lines of character rewards for thinking, really engaging and thinking on their feet or doing something above and beyond, that often gets recognized by the other players as well. And so in Allies of Majesty, it's encouraged that every so often you have a group discussion where the players out of character talk about each other's characters and how each other as a player have what it was perceived by the other players, like, hey, this choice you made, or hey, this action you did, or hey, just as a player, you're just always getting up and going to the snack table and you're not really engaged and that kind of stuff. So we also give, as the host, based on that discussion, I'll give extra honor as a reward, or maybe an item or some other thing. I'll give a reward to characters who are, even if they're just as a player, they're really encouraging people, and they're saying, hey, yeah, no, guys, don't give up, we can do this, I know, and not even as their character, but as a player. But it doesn't matter either way. If you're adding to the fun of the game, Allies of Majesty encourages you, encourages the host to reward players that do that, that go above and beyond. And it doesn't just have to be an honor bonus. Sometimes the ability to permanently increase one of your stats, or learn a new ability, and that's based on scrolls. That's an item in the game, is scrolls that you can eat, and you gain a permanent bonus from those. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can reward that. But that's another thing, is rewarding other players, or rewarding characters and players based on the discussion of the group and what the group's been seeing and commenting on. Now, one more unique thing I want to mention about Allies of Majesty is when you go up a level, you might learn a new ability or something else, but you also, because you're not confined to these mortal bodies, you have regular stat increases to your primary attributes, your primary abilities, your character's values. And as you go up, though, you don't just get an automatic increase. You actually get what are called seeds of growth. And that's another way that we encourage player involvement, is that if you get endurance seeds, endurance is kind of your health value, basically. If you're not, if you're not pushing yourself, exerting yourself, if you're not taking damage, you're not going to sprout those seeds. Those seeds are not going to sprout and produce an increase in your endurance until you've tested yourself. You don't have to test and succeed. You might test and fail. Swiftness is another stat, for example. And if are, whether you're like, hey, that guy, he was, every time it was his turn, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He was ready. Or if it's like, no, this guy, he struggled and he was looking through his paper and didn't know what his character could do and what to do in the situation, and very, just not ready. But in the discussion, the player recognizes that and says, man, my guy really took a lesson from that, and he needs to, he's going to try to be more just prepared, more mindful of what he could do in the situation. And that's something that he's really going to put effort into. Then that's also rewarded with those seeds. Basically, you've either exercised them or you've learned an important lesson about them, but through failing to exercise them well. But either way, that leads to an increase in that ability. And so those seeds that you have resolve, and they grow, and they produce an increase in that stat. And so that's another way that people, or that Allies of Majesty encourages people to, the players, to be mindful of what seeds of potential growth they have, and really be looking at ways in which their character should employ those stats if they really want to see the increase anytime soon. So that's just a few of the things that I thought about in regards to rewards. And again, I thought it was kind of a neat topic, so I wanted to go ahead and just make my first video actually on any of these things and just talk about it for a few minutes. Thanks for watching, and talk to you next time.